To me, specifically me during the first part of my 20s. From me at 24 going on 25 in less than 2 weeks. We're at that point in our 20s where we're well into it, but still kind of far from 30, but not too far since we're closer to 30 than we are to 15. Basically, mid-20s. This is a letter from me right now to me then. A letter with things I wish I knew, things I knew but should have listened to or taken seriously, things I needed to hear. So, let's get into it. From the start of our 20s up to this point, it has definitely not been what we imagined it to be. It's nowhere near what we thought it would look like as kids, and honestly, even what we thought it would be like as we're going through it. But even though things have not panned out the way we imagined it to be, in a way, this is better. I remember thinking that in my 20s, I'd have it all together. I'd know anything and everything I'd need to know, and that life would be smooth sailing from there. I'm letting you know right now, that was a load of bullshit. And honestly, that's okay. I think it's safe to say that the first part of my 20s is where the most learning and growth took place. At least for now. Think about it. You went from being in a bubble for most of your life, then all of a sudden it popped. You were thrown into a world where you had to figure out how to make eggs without calling for help, learn that love is not what the fantasies made it out to be, try to balance the freedom you've craved for so long while still maintaining your responsibilities, all while trying to figure out why there was a lingering sadness and fear constantly on your back, never leaving you alone no matter how hard you tried to ignore it. Looking back, I should have given you more compassion and grace. You had to abruptly adjust to the quote-unquote real world with little to no experience from that bubble you were in for so long. It was hard, and I wish I had acknowledged and accepted that. I know you went through a lot. Literally, in almost every aspect of your life, there's something going on no matter how big or small it seemed. It was a lot to handle, yet you managed to pull through. You always made your way back to where you needed to be, even if it took some messy detours along the way. You are resilient. Even when it felt like life kicked you to your lowest, multiple times at that, you always got back up, and you would fight harder. You never gave up, which is honestly why I've managed to be okay today. I do wish that I could have told you it's okay to not be strong. You didn't need to hide that you were struggling for so long. You didn't need to wait until it all built up to break down and cry, to admit that you didn't know what to do. You didn't need to minimize the things you were going through, even if it felt that your struggles weren't that serious. It's okay that you weren't okay. At your best and at your worst, you still deserve all the love, kindness, grace, and compassion you give so freely to others. I know that there were times it felt like the darkness was never ending. Tomorrow felt more like a dream, and it always felt like morning would never come. But trust me, morning will come. Daylight will break through and give you that warm embrace you've been aching for so long. There is a light at the end of the tunnel, as cliche as that sounds. For starters, college, or as I called it, the Great Academic Depression. While the college experience felt like the best years of your life, we both know that our priorities weren't handled in the best way. I know that your academics took a toll on you. Being in all of those bio and chem classes really made you question your abilities and, honestly, even your self-worth. It felt like a dream rather than a reality that you would graduate. But you did. We did. While we're not magna cum whatever it's called, we made it through college, which is an accomplishment in itself. And although we didn't stick with our original career path, we ended up figuring out what we wanted to do. All of those detours, redirections, stumbling blocks still allowed you to get to where you needed to be, and eventually, where you wanted to be. Another thing I want to talk to you about is change. One thing I do know is that letting go and change are some of the things you absolutely despise. Because honestly, I still hate it too. But I think it's safe to say that we're learning to let go of the things we can't control and are focusing on the things we can control. I know that trying to make things work with what you got can be a good thing, but not if it's costing you your peace, or costing you, you. You don't need to stay in a space where you have to constantly compromise your values and worth. You don't need to change yourself for the sake of another. You don't need to hold on to things so tightly in fears of losing them, because you could end up losing yourself in the process. I know that throughout our life, especially in the first part of our 20s, it was easy to attach our identity to being a daughter, a friend, a girlfriend, a student, a board member, a youth ministry leader, whatever. But your identity is so much more than that. You are Alexa. Alexa is enough. You are enough. Some of these titles aren't even permanent, so rather than attaching yourself and your worth to a label, hone in on you. At the end of the day, one of the most consistent things in your life is you. That won't change. Yes, you'll grow up and change just like everyone else, but remember that you are with yourself from the beginning to the end. People, places, things will come and go, and that's okay. Thank them for their time and the space they held in your life. Life moves on, and so will you. Don't let the fear of change hold you back. Whether it's a change in direction, a change in place, even a change in your beliefs. Change is bound to happen. Change allows you to grow. Change can be a good thing. I know that when things stay relatively the same, it feels stagnant but stable, like you have control. But when change comes, and it will come, embrace it. It'll be scary, but honestly, it makes life more worthwhile. Some of the best things in your life now came to be because of change, big and small. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. I've mentioned this a few times, but give yourself the love, kindness, grace, and compassion that you give to others, and then some. You deserve it, even if you don't think so. Your relationship with yourself is one of the most important things. You and I both know that you are low-key way too hard on yourself. You don't need to be perfect. No one is expecting you to be perfect. Let yourself breathe. Let yourself feel. Let yourself heal. It's all part of being human. And since I mentioned healing, please don't beat up yourself over things that you're healing from. Even if it takes a while, because as we know, healing isn't linear. You don't need to follow a timeline that people set for you. And honestly, I don't think anyone is really expecting you to heal in a certain time frame. Also, don't hyper-focus on growing. While growth is good, growth takes time. Good things take time. Don't try and overwater yourself and expect to bloom right away. That could literally do the opposite. As you know from literal experience from overwatering your neighbor's plants when you were a kid. The plants literally died. You don't need to have it all together and set. You're still learning, and you'll still be learning as you go through life. Learn by doing, go Broncos. But for real, just live your life in the best way that you can. I'm so proud of you. You've come a long way and managed to still find the good and beauty in the things around you. You've held on to your faith even if it felt like it was hanging by a string. And as cheesy as this may be, amidst it all, you stayed true to yourself. You stayed Alexa, and that is something I'm honestly so thankful for. Thank you for being you. I love you, bitch.